Okay, it's been a while. 4 whole months, huh? Now, I could give excuses on this gap in the upload schedule, namely surgery, exams, new projects, an annual conversion from writing to the visual arts, but that won't be as fun. Let me tell you something though. Sibith, or Devixie, has not been eating good. However, everything's still proceeding according to plan, as I plan to disassociate myself from all things Devixie for at least a year following the finish of my last book. In the meantime, I've been working on a new world. I've touched up on it already in some of the previous episodes, but this time I'm doing it for real. Strandsong, also dubbed Upsilon Always, is the name. Well, not the name of the actual planet the setting takes place on, but this time I'm not looking to go so in depth into the actual hard science. It is a medieval-esque epic quote-unquote fantasy regarding length and light-medium fantasy regarding the relevance of magic in the setting that weaves a young lord's relationship with his legendary father, a royal guard's struggle between family, both literal and metaphorical, and duty, and in turn his own identity, and a rogue witch's journey of ups and downs with the aforementioned young lord's family. It takes place in a world where magic is diminishing. Think beginning of the Fourth Age in Lord of the Rings, where magic has nearly vanished entirely. And the primary problem in everyday life becomes not dragons, but the next tithe. Magical beasts and mythical geography still exists, but they have either been rationalized, tamed, relegated to footnotes on cartographic maps, or systematically eradicated. More on this point later. The primary setting of the story, Yarna, is the greatest human kingdom. Well, there are hardly any other species with enough numbers to form their own kingdoms, after all, of the West. Think post-Renaissance Europe without the new inventions. That holds power over its surrounding regions, though respects yet the sovereignties of each of its subordinate kingdoms. However, over the course of the story, more and more of that sovereignty will be lost. In other words, the story is set on the verge of a suzerain becoming an empire. On the more magical side, it has also engaged in nearly 3 decades worth of quote-unquote retaliatory genocide against witches. This is a colloquial placeholder term, though the diegetic nickname for them are gorebats, as covens live in burrows and require blood for their rituals. Inspired, of course, by the Crusades and various other historic events. With its campaigns, spearheaded by the third prince of the kingdom, finally coming to a triumphant close. The story, however, focuses not on the third prince's military exploits, but instead on the daily lives of the second prince, Yarna's archduke, on the second prince's household affairs taking place in Lydon, the second prince's thriving fiefdom and his life's work, and centering on the characters within it. Now, the story branches outside of Lydon as it goes on, but for now, I'm mainly focusing on Lydon as the primary setting. Now, apart from Yarna and its vassal states, there are also places beyond the human continent, like the Eastern Isles that house Kiln, the now dying hub of magic and last stronghold of the witches, the Garden, the equivalent of heaven on earth, now made inaccessible due to all bridges connecting to it being purposefully destroyed by a long-lived member of the main cast. The Bone Sea, which isolates the human continent from the rest of the monstrous places, and the Great Glades, a false Elysium where followers of old pagan faiths go to die in. Strandsong, like Dossiers of the Vixie, is inspired by Moshoku Tensei. It's highly likely that I go to Moshoku Tensei route in terms of working with human history, with great wars in the past mentioned only briefly in road signs and diegetic clues. However, I do plan on heavily focusing on the internal functions of Yarna and its vassal states. Regarding these states, I took heavy inspiration from George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. I especially liked A Song of Ice and Fire's way of titling its vassal regions via assigning it an attribute and adding land behind, like the Stormlands, the Crownlands, the Riverlands, etc. This is both an incredible and easy way to instantly impart knowledge and world building to the audience, and I definitely borrowed it for my own works. Lydon, for instance, is located more along the north of Yarna, with its cold climate centering rye and rye-based products, rye whiskey, military rations, fertilizer, etc., as its main export, thus earning itself the name of Ryelands. Apart from the Ryelands, there's also the Hawklands and the Cairnlands, which I named to maximize both imagery and, of course, aura. Now, obviously, there are regions without regional names and only kingdom names, but their names are based purely on my lyrical preferences. I'm around 50,000 words into the book. Once again, I've come to realize how hard it is to actually pace a long-form literary work like this. I'm more than half 100k words in and have barely gotten to the inciting incident. Or, at least, the inciting incident I planned. In reality, I tried to give each of my chapters and scenes a micro-conflict regarding characters, and hint at a larger macro-conflict regarding power shifts and political changes. Still, it's eating up a lot of words and a lot of good prose that I'll have to painstakingly cut in the final version. For now, I'm anticipating this book to be at least 200,000 words. Now, with that being said, that's all for this episode.